What up, guys? It's Phil Hummy. It's home game, and make a crazy play against DJ Washburn. He's actually a DJ, and he plays many sets in Los Angeles and many other places in the U.S. He's part Korean, to my understanding. Anyway, so he calls in the big blind. I start off raising. No, he three bets. Excuse me. So we're gonna play a real pot here, and he makes top pair, top kicker. It turns out, and checks to me. I decide that this guy's likely to fold quite a few hands. I got a backdoor flush draw, and I block some things that can check fold or fold at some point, like pocket nines, pocket eights. I bet $800, and I'm not planning on giving up too easily. The turn is a 10. Now, if he had pocket nines, pocket eights, that would have been sort of a good card for him, but I don't think he's going to call. There are streets with such hands, and he can still fold a lot of ace highs, king highs, maybe even a jack eight type thing, pair of sevens, things like that, which he has sometimes. And I decide to put the pressure on him, and he tanks. He goes for the Hollywood, and he calls. River is a queen, and what's he going to do? He leads out for this small amount after tanking for a while for 400. I didn't really know what this meant. It either means he's really strong or really weak, I think. So in this case, I just thought that I was going to bluff anyway, so whatever. And it's really hard for him to have trips here, especially if he is on the polar side. And if he is on the polar side, he has pairs of sevens and stuff. So I decide, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just gonna bump it up and see what happens. I make it 8,000 into about a $10,000 pot, and he does call me, and he has ace 10. I feel like an idiot. But yeah, he got me pretty good there. For future reference, I have to see what that little mini lead means. It's pretty important to pay attention to, but it looks like he's polarized in that spot. That's important stuff to notice. Anyway, you got me good there. I'll have to get him next time. This was for my biggest tournament win ever for $3.5 million. One of the biggest main events Triton Poker's ever had. There were millions and millions of dollars in play. The first place got 5.5 million, which, by the way, was won by a Chinese player. Huang, I think his name is. And so I'm going to show a really big hand that I played here. Early position raised with aces. Everyone folds up to me. This is a crucial hand in the tournament. I call in the big blind, king 10 offsuit. All right, the flop's king, queen 2. Not a bad flop for me. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I've got backdoor 10 2 for the 10 of spades, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So checks to Deng, a U.S. player. I call. He's early position. I don't want to build a big pot. And yeah, you can have ace king, aces, sets of queens, stuff like that. I don't want to lose more against those sorts of hands. I turn two pair. Amazing result. I'm really in a great spot now with two pair. Now on the river, I think there's a good chance he bets really thin for value with king jack, ace king, aces, these sorts of hands, maybe king nine suited. So I decided to go for the check raise. And I really want to protect my check range anyway. And let's really hope that he bets here. So he bets 1,500 or 1.5 million, excuse me. A pretty sizable bet. And I decide that my hand is not too thin to play. Let's hope he could have king 8 of diamonds too. That's also a possibility here. That would be the best situation. But I bump it up big. I make it almost 6 million. I'm putting him to the test to see if he can get away from, well, in this case, to get away from his hand here, if he has a real hand. He actually happens to have one of the worst hands to call with. He wants to have a king in his hand, ideally, because he wants to block my two pairs. But he may, all those hands are roughly indifferent. Anyway, he decides to put the money in with aces, and I show him the bad news, raking in a huge pot, leading towards my eventual second place victory. Very crucial hand in the tournament. And almost knocking him out. He decides I'm gangster enough to go for it. But I just had it instead. I was a gangster in a different way. Going over another big hand, but this time not a hand of my own. I'm going over a hand that actually a Chinese player who ended up winning the tournament played. So Sam Greenwood with about 25 big blinds raises it early position with pocket jacks, and Huang in the big blind with almost a chip lead here, I believe. Raises in the big blind with pocket kings. Really great situation for pocket kings, obviously, especially since Sam has pocket jacks. He's in a world of trouble. In my opinion, he's got a call here, but perhaps he's thinking to himself something else. He tanks, he tanks, he tanks. He goes all in. He thinks Huang's full of it, and Huang shows him some really bad news for pocket kings. If I was in Sam's position, I would have just called and tried to see a safe flop because unless Huang's really making a lot of moves here, this play is not going to do too well. Now, Huang gets in really well for a 20 million pot, and it's for the top place gets $5.5 million more than that. Actually, I believe it's $5.55 million, and Huang stacks Sam Greenwood, one of the top American pros in this tournament, to get a bigger chip lead, moving on to him finally winning this entire thing. Going over to the final table with me, Archer, Huang, Wenjie, I think, and it's for one of the biggest Triton 100K no-limit hold'em main event tournaments that's been around. There's 5 million at top. We're all guaranteed about 2 million-ish at this point. So Archer in the small blind calls with king 6 suited. Pretty clear call. Not a hand he's like trying to play much of a pot with. Wang Jia could just jam all in here. No, they're a bit deep actually. He couldn't. But if they're a bit more shallow, he could have done that. Anyway, so the flop is ace 2-3 with the club. So Archer's got a backdoor flush draw. He tanks, he tanks, he tanks. He checks, which I think is a good play. Huang could in fact put some pressure on Archer here, especially with all the 5-4 offsuit combos, even maybe some ace 2x type combos, but he's got a set, which is not a great situation for Archer. Bets the minimum. Archer calls. You got a backdoor flush draw, king high. Turns the king. What's Huang gonna do? Huang is in the tank. Dream situation. He somehow has it here. He bets 3 million. Quite a big bet into almost a little less than 3 million even, I think. Now, Archer's in a really difficult spot. What's he gonna do with his pair of kings? It's pretty hard for Huang to have it. He decides to make the call. He doesn't believe him. Now he's just going to the river with nothing but a reverse implied odds. If he gets a king or 6, is in a terrible situation. The river's a 2, which is a bit of a bad card, I'd say, for Archer, because theoretically Huang could have a 2x, but that being said, there's not that many value bets. But if you think about it, Huang only increases in value bets in this spot. And it's a really weird spot if Huang does bet. Maybe Huang can bet ace-x because Archer can't really have 2x very easily. He could, Huang can bet ace-x here. It's a worse card than it looks. So all of a sudden ace-x becomes a value bet. And he's just in one of the worst situations possible. Huang goes all in. Archer just lets it go. He doesn't know. Well, he just thinks Huang must have it, and Huang wins the pot with pocket threes. Pretty big pot, and furthering his lead to eventually go on and win the 100K no limit hold'em main event for $5.5 million. One of the last hands of the Triton main event for 100K with Huang, a Chinese player, against Artur Martirosyan, a Russian player. Huang raises in the big blind versus Archer's limps. Archer limps the jack 10 suited, a bit shallow with about 30 big blinds. Huang raises it up, pocket fives. Archer calls, small blind versus big blind, checks to Huang. Archer's got a big hand with a pair plus flush draw, but he's in a terrible situation against Huang. Huang's got a set of fives, and Huang's been quite aggressive at this point. Archer's really gonna not want to fold here. Let's see if he can get away from it. So Huang bets 2 million, about a third pot into 6.6 million. Archer just decides to slow play. No check raising from Archer. The turn is an ace of diamonds. You'd think that might slow Huang down because maybe Archer's got an ace, but Huang still's got a set. Dream situation for him. What's he gonna do? He bets 6 million into 8.6 million. He's repping something pretty big. There aren't a whole lot of combos you can actually have for value. Archer's got a pretty clear decision, in my opinion. He decides to just call. He could even jam, by the way. because there's a good chance Huang has a draw, and he doesn't have a whole lot left. He happens to have a huge hand, but on the river he bricks out, which he thinks is good for him. Well, he really wanted to hit the flush draw. That would have been the ideal situation, but instead he's got a pile of shit. So he's not gonna love this spot at all, especially since Huang just happens to have it here. Huang bets 8 million into a pot of about 20. It's about 40% pot. There's really not a whole lot of hands Huang can have here. He can have an ace. He can have ace 10x. I guess he can have a 3x. He can have a set, which he does happen to have. And Artur's just been taking it over and over from Huang. Let's see if he can get away from this one. And this is for, if he's wrong, he gets knocked out of the tournament and gets third place for about $2 million. Let's see what he does. And then Huang has the chip lead also, if he folds or if he calls. So he does decide to make the call, and Huang shows him the bad news, knocking him out, putting him in third place, and having Huang go for the lead against me. Heads up for all the money. And so
if you happen to play some live poker, you got to know what the rake is. You got to know what realistic win rates are. You got to know this kind of stuff. Speaking of which, on the Jungleverse, we provide many resources to help many of you up-and-coming players in order to avoid many pitfalls that many people play, also to avoid getting cheating. We provide some details of what to look out for. We have a map of what the best online sites are to play at and why, and what kind of games you're looking for. If you want to try your luck and try to strike it rich, playing tournaments, why not? The math's a bit against you. We have the resources for that too.
What happens next? Huang raises. We're playing heads up. Me versus Huang, one of China's finest. I've got ace king offsuit after his limp. I raise it up. See what he does. It's going to be an uphill battle, but I'm ready to fight it out. He limp calls with 7-6 suited. I got ace king on jack 4-4. It's a pretty good flop. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty hard for Huang to have this beat. I bet a third pot. We're a bit shallow though. Huang decides to call with a 6-7 suited. The turn is an 8, which I still have nothing here, but it's very hard for Huang to have me beat. He bets small. He bets 2.5. If he's got a king or an ace or worse, he's in really bad shape against me. I decide I gotta call and see a river. And he rivers a pair of 7s, which is not a good situation for me. One of the next hands, I just go all in with jack and an offsuit for about 15 big blinds. Huang calls with king queen offsuit. I had about 14 big blinds actually, and I'm not in a good situation. Huang wins this, he wins it all. I gotta win for my tournament life. And if I get knocked out, I win $3.5 million. And Huang flops trip queens. I need quad jacks to win. I do get another jack though. So I need one of the 2 jacks in order to win, and Huang wins it all. I get second place to Huang from China. Still happy with my win. Went over $3.5 million, and he takes the trophy and wins the whole lot. Good game, Huang. Better luck for me next time.